Commander Jun-Ho Park stood at the window of his office, looking out at the training grounds of the Seoul Military Academy. The early morning sun glinted off the wet grass where cadets were already running their daily drills. He sighed and turned back to his desk, where an official message waited on his screen. "So they're really coming," he said to himself. After years of careful talks with the Viridian Confederation, one of their high commanders wanted to see how humans train for war. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Captain Hae-Yun Kim walked in and stood at attention. "You wanted to see me, Commander." "At ease, Captain. Have you heard the news? About the alien visit?" "Yes, sir. The whole base is talking about it." Jun-Ho gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, please. I need your help with this." Hae-Yun sat down, her back still straight. She had earned her position through 10 years of hard fighting during the Mars Rebellion. If anyone knew what made human soldiers special, it was her. "The Viridian commander, Zolter, will arrive tomorrow," Jun-Ho explained. "This isn't just a friendly visit. The Viridians want to understand our military capabilities." "They think we're weak," Hae-Yun said bluntly. "I've read the reports. They believe their technology makes them superior." Jun-Ho nodded. "Exactly. So we need to show them that humans aren't just about technology. We're about heart, endurance, and thinking on our feet." He pulled up the Academy's training schedule on his screen. "I want you to lead the tour. Show Zolter everything. Physical training, combat simulations, even the history wing. Everything, sir. Even the psychological resistance training. Especially that." Jun-Ho's eyes narrowed. "The Viridians need to understand that our strength isn't in our weapons. It's in here." He tapped his temple. Hae-Yun thought for a moment. "We could time the tour to catch Jai-Ho's endurance class and Su-Jin's combat demonstration. Those two cadets are exceptional." "Good thinking. And make sure we're there when Min-Ho runs the leadership drill. I want Zolter to see how our cadets adapt when things go wrong." Outside the window, thunder rumbled. Rain would be coming soon, making training even harder. Jun-Ho smiled. "Perfect weather for showing our visitors what humans are made of." Hae-Yun stood and saluted. "I'll prepare everything, sir. By the time Zolter leaves, the Viridians will understand that humans aren't to be underestimated." As she left, Jun-Ho turned back to the window. The cadets were still running, even as the first raindrops began to fall. They didn't slow down or seek shelter. They simply adjusted to the new conditions and kept going. "That's humanity for you," he murmured. "Always adapting, always enduring." Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. The next morning, a sleek silver ship landed on the Academy's special landing pad. Captain Hae-Yun stood with Commander Jun-Ho and a small welcome team as the ship's door opened with a soft hiss. Commander Zolter stepped out first. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin covered in shimmering blue-green scales. 2 smaller Viridians followed, carrying what looked like data tablets. "Welcome to Earth's Seoul Military Academy," Jun-Ho said with a small bow. "I am Commander Park Jun-Ho, and this is Captain Kim Hae-Yun, who will guide your tour today." Zolter's large eyes blinked slowly. The alien's mouth formed what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach those eyes. "How quaint," Zolter said, voice sounding metallic through the translator device. "We appreciate your willingness to show us your training methods, primitive though they may be." Hae-Yun felt her jaw tighten, but kept her face neutral. The alien commander had just insulted them within the first minute of arrival. "We're honored to share our traditions with you," she said smoothly. "Please follow me." As they walked across the grounds, a group of cadets ran past in full gear, mud splashing up their legs. Zolter watched with obvious distaste. "You make your soldiers run in dirt," the alien asked. "Why not use mobility enhancers?" "We believe natural physical conditioning builds more than just strength," Hae-Yun explained. "It builds mental toughness too." Zolter made a clicking sound that the translator didn't catch. Viridian soldiers are genetically enhanced at birth. Such exertion is unnecessary. They entered the main building where more cadets stood at attention. Zolter walked past them, forearms clasped behind the alien's back, head swiveling to observe everything. "Your facilities are smaller than I expected," Zolter commented, running a finger along a wall. "Our training centers orbit our homeworld and span kilometers. Size isn't everything," Junho said calmly. "Quality matters more than quantity." In the main hall, screens showed different training exercises happening around the academy. Zolter pointed to one showing cadets practicing hand-to-hand combat. "You still teach physical fighting. How primitive. Our soldiers use neural whips and gravity manipulators." Heiyun stepped forward. "Would you like to see our combat training up close? I think you might find it educational." Zolter's aide whispered something, but the commander waved two arms dismissively. "Yes, show me these fighting techniques. I'm curious to see how effective they could possibly be without technological assistance." As they headed toward the combat arena, Heiyun caught Junho's eye. The commander gave her a small nod. The Viridians were in for their first real surprise of the day. The combat training room was large and bright. 20 cadets stood in pairs on blue mats, practicing fighting moves. Their instructor, a short man with gray hair, called out commands in a sharp voice. "This is Cadet Jai-Ho Lee," Heiyun said, pointing to a young man in the corner. "He holds the academy record for endurance training." Zolter watched as Jai-Ho ran through a series of complex moves. The cadet moved with speed and precision, never slowing even as sweat poured down his face. "How long has he been training today?" Zolter asked. "About 4 hours," Heiyun replied. "He'll continue for another 3. The alien commander's eyes widened slightly. 7 hours of continuous physical activity, without rest. With minimal rest, Junho corrected. "We believe pushing physical limits expands mental ones." Zolter made notes on a small device. "Viridian soldiers train for efficiency, not endurance. Our combat engagements rarely last more than 15 minutes. Human conflicts can last days," Heiyun said. "Or years." The instructor called the cadets to attention, then announced a demonstration. A small female cadet stepped forward. "This is Cadet Su-Jin Choi," Heiyun explained. "She specializes in close-quarters combat." Su-Jin bowed to the visitors, then faced her opponent, a male cadet nearly twice her size. Without warning, they began to fight. Zolter leaned forward, all 4 hands gripping the railing. The alien watched as Su-Jin dodged a powerful punch, dropped low, and used her opponent's weight against him. In seconds, the larger cadet was on the ground, pinned and unable to move. "Impressive use of leverage," Zolter admitted. "Though in real combat, size and strength usually prevail." "Would you care to test that theory?" Heiyun asked innocently. The room went quiet. Zolter stared at her. "You're suggesting I fight one of your cadets?" "Not at all," Heiyun said. "I'm suggesting you fight me." Junho shot her a warning glance, but she ignored it. Zolter laughed, a strange metallic sound. "I have twice your strength and 2 extra arms, Captain." "Then it should be an easy victory," Heiyun replied, stepping onto the mat. "Unless there's more to human combat than you understand." The alien's aides whispered urgently, but Zolter silenced them with a gesture. The commander removed an outer cloak and stepped onto the mat. "Very well." A friendly demonstration. The cadets formed a circle around them. Junho looked worried, but gave the signal to begin. Zolter lunged forward with all 4 arms extended, clearly expecting to end the match quickly. Heiyun smiled. This would be the alien's first real lesson about humans. Heiyun moved like water. As Zolter's 4 arms reached for her, she simply wasn't there anymore. She slipped past the alien's guard and tapped one scaled knee. Not hard, just enough to show she could have struck. Zolter spun around, faster than Hae-yun expected. Two arms grabbed for her while the other two blocked her escape. But Hae-yun dropped to the floor, rolled between the alien's legs, and came up behind. "First lesson," she said, "never underestimate a smaller opponent." The alien commander whirled again, eyes narrowed. This time, Sol-ter moved more carefully, using two arms as decoys while the others prepared to grab. Hae-yun let the alien corner her, then used the wall to push off, flipping over Sol-ter's head. As she landed, she swept one leg out, catching the commander off balance. Sol-ter stumbled but didn't fall. The alien was learning. "Enough," Jun-ho called. "I think the point is made." Hae-yun stepped back and bowed. Sol-ter, after a moment's hesitation, returned the gesture with all four arms. "You fight." Unusually, the alien admitted, without predictable patterns. "Humans adapt," Hae-yun replied. "It's our greatest strength." Suddenly, a loud alarm blared. The lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. Sprinklers in the ceiling turned on, spraying cold water everywhere. Sol-ter's aides cried out in alarm. The Viridians huddled together, their scales dulling in the water. "What is happening?" Sol-ter demanded, voice rising over the alarm. But Hae-yun and Jun-ho were watching the cadets. Without panic, without confusion, they moved to predetermined positions. Some secured the doors. Others set up emergency lights. Within seconds, soft blue lights came on, casting shadows across the wet floor. "Academy-wide emergency drill," Jun-ho explained calmly, water dripping from his face. "Random and unannounced." Cadet Min-ho Kang was already organizing the other students, setting up a defensive position around the visitors. His voice was clear and confident in the darkness. "Team A, secure the hall. Team B, establish communication with command. Team C, protect our guests." Sol-ter stared at the young cadet. He is not even an officer. Every cadet trains to lead. Hae-yun said, "Any human might need to take command if others fall." The aliens huddled closer, clearly uncomfortable with the water and darkness. Hae-yun noticed Sol-ter's normally bright scales had turned a dull gray. "Your species dislikes water?" she asked. "It affects our heat regulation," Sol-ter admitted. "And our night vision is poor." Hae-yun looked at the cadets, moving efficiently through conditions that clearly distressed their visitors. "Interesting," she said. "For us, training in discomfort is essential. The enemy chooses the battlefield, rarely us." In the dim blue light, Sol-ter's expression was unreadable, but the commander's eyes never left the cadets as they continued to work, undisturbed by the chaos around them. After the emergency drill ended, the group made their way down a long hallway. Sol-ter's scales had returned to their normal shine, but the alien commander seemed quieter now, watching the humans more carefully. "Where are we going next?" Sol-ter asked. "Psychological training," Hae-yun answered, "an important part of human military preparation." They stopped at a thick metal door. A sign read, "Psychological Warfare Division." "What happens here?" Sol-ter asked. "We train cadets to withstand mental pressure," Jun-ho explained. "Isolation, fear, pain, confusion. Anything an enemy might use against them." Inside, they entered an observation room with large windows looking into several smaller rooms. In one, a young woman sat alone in a bare cell. She looked tired, her uniform wrinkled, her hair messy. "This is Cadet Yoonji-ba," Hae-yun said. "She's been in isolation for 72 hours. Sol-ter's eyes widened. 3 days alone. Why would you do this?" "To prepare her for capture," Jun-ho said simply. "Enemies often isolate prisoners." A door opened in Yoonji's room. An instructor entered and began asking her questions. They watched as the cadet sat straight, eyes forward, answering only with her name and ID number. "She will answer nothing else," Hae-yun explained, "no matter what they do." Solter leaned closer to the glass. Viridians cannot tolerate isolation. After 20 hours, most of us would say anything to end it. Humans are different, Junho said. We can endure much. They moved to another window. Inside, cadets sat in uncomfortable positions, not moving despite the strain on their muscles. Pain tolerance training, Heian explained. They will remain still for hours. Solter turned to the humans. Do your people enjoy suffering? No, Junho said, but we accept it as necessary. The more we endure in training, the more we can endure in war. The alien commander whispered something to an aide, who made quick notes. All this training is voluntary? Solter asked. Completely, Heian confirmed. Every cadet here chose this path. They stopped at one last window. Inside, a cadet was running on a treadmill. He looked exhausted, barely able to stand, but he kept moving. Numbers on a screen showed he had been running for over 10 hours. Why doesn't he stop? Solter asked, genuinely confused. Because he hasn't reached his limit yet, Heian said. Humans rarely know their true limits until they're pushed past what they believe possible. The alien commander stared at the struggling cadet, then at the humans beside him. Your species is disturbing, Solter said quietly. Junho smiled slightly. That's exactly what we want our enemies to think. Sarah stood at the edge of the old forest, her heart beating fast. The trees looked dark and tall, with branches that seemed to reach out like hungry fingers. She knew she had to go inside, but something made her want to turn back. Just then, a small sound caught her attention. It was quiet, almost like a whisper. Sarah looked down and saw a strange silver key lying on the ground. The key was old and had strange marks on it. She picked it up carefully, feeling its cool metal against her skin. The wind blew softly, making the leaves rustle. Sarah remembered what her grandmother had told her years ago. Sometimes, her grandmother would say, "The most important things are found when you least expect them." Those words rang in her mind right now. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. The forest floor was soft under her feet, covered with fallen leaves and tiny plants. Shadows moved between the trees, but Sarah tried to stay calm. She knew fear would not help her now. Something moved in the distance. Was it an animal or something else? Sarah couldn't be sure. Her hand held the silver key tightly, almost like it was her only protection in this strange place. Suddenly, a path appeared before her. It was not a big path, just a small trail that wound between the trees. It looked like nobody had walked this path for a very long time. Moss covered the ground, and old tree roots stuck out in funny shapes. Sarah knew she had a choice. She could go back to the safe, open area behind her, or she could follow this hidden path into the deeper part of the forest. Her heart was telling her to move forward, even though her mind was saying she should be careful. The silver key felt warm now, almost like it was alive in her hand. Strange, she thought. Keys are not supposed to feel warm. But this key was different. It seemed to have a story of its own, a secret waiting to be discovered. One more step, then another. Sarah moved slowly into the forest, watching everything around her. The trees seemed to lean in, watching her just as carefully as she was watching them. Something big was about to happen. She could feel it in her bones. The old clock in the forest clearing showed strange numbers. It did not look like a normal clock. Its face was made of what seemed like green glass, and the numbers were not in the right order. Some were upside down, and others were sideways. Tom had been walking for hours. His shoes were covered in mud, and his jacket was torn in 2 places. He did not know how he had gotten to this part of the forest. The last thing he remembered was walking home from school. Now, everything looked different. A small rabbit watched Tom from behind a big rock. But this was not a normal rabbit. Its eyes were too bright, almost like they were made of tiny lights. When Tom looked directly at the rabbit, it did not hop away. Instead, it just stared back at him. The silver key Sarah had found earlier seemed to be calling to Tom. He did not know why, But he felt like the key was important. Something inside him wanted to find Sarah and understand what was happening. Wind blew through the trees, making a sound like whispers. Tom could almost hear words, but they were not clear. The forest felt alive, more alive than any place he had ever been before. Shadows moved between the trees, even when nothing was there to make them move. An old wooden sign stood nearby. Its letters were hard to read. Some were falling off, and others were covered with green moss. Tom stepped closer to read it. The sign seemed to have a message, but the words were jumbled and strange. A sound came from behind him. Tom turned quickly. Nothing was there, but something had moved. He was sure of it. His heart started to beat faster. The forest was watching him. He was certain of that. The rabbit was still there, its bright eyes never leaving Tom. It seemed to be waiting for something. Tom felt like he was part of a big puzzle, and he did not know all the pieces yet. Suddenly, a path appeared. It was not there a moment ago. Tom was sure of this. The path was made of smooth stones that looked like they were glowing very softly. Each stone seemed to have a small mark on it, like a tiny symbol. Tom knew he had to make a choice. The path was calling to him, but something told him that taking this path would change everything. One step forward would mean leaving everything he knew behind. The forest held its breath, waiting for Tom's next move. The wind blew harder now. Leaves danced around Sarah, spinning in crazy circles. She noticed something strange about these leaves. They were not green or brown like normal leaves. Some were silver, some were blue, some looked like they were made of glass. Sarah remembered the silver key in her pocket. She pulled it out and looked at it closely. The key seemed to glow softly, even in the dark forest. Small lines and strange marks covered its surface. It was like the key wanted to tell her something important. A sound came from far away. It was not an animal sound. It was not a bird or a wolf. The sound was more like music, but not music anyone would know. It was soft and strange, like someone was playing an instrument that did not exist in the real world. Suddenly, Sarah saw something move between the trees. It was not Tom. It was not an animal. It was something else. Something that looked like a shadow, but not a normal shadow. This shadow had shape. This shadow had eyes. The path Sarah was walking on changed. Each step she took made the ground look different. Where her foot touched, flowers grew. These were not normal flowers. They were small and bright, with colors that nobody had ever seen before. Blue that looked like fire. Red that looked like water. Tom was not far away. Sarah did not know this, but they were close. Very close. The forest was bringing them together, like a big puzzle that wanted to be solved. The rabbit with bright eyes appeared again. But now it was different. Now it stood on two legs. Now it wore a small hat made of leaves. The rabbit looked at Sarah and smiled. Rabbits are not supposed to smile, but this one did. "Be careful," the rabbit said. Its voice was soft and sounded like wind through trees. "Things are not what they look like here." Sarah wanted to ask questions, but before she could speak, the rabbit disappeared, just like that. One moment it was there, the next moment gone. The silver key in her hand started to get warm, warmer and warmer. It felt like it was alive, like it had a heart of its own. Sarah knew something big was going to happen. She could feel it in her bones. The forest was waiting, watching, listening. And Sarah was right in the middle of something very, very strange. Tom's feet felt heavy. Each step was like walking through thick mud, but the ground looked dry and normal. Something was not right. The forest around him seemed to breathe. Yes, breathe. Like a living thing with big lungs that moved in and out. A strange sound came from above. Tom looked up. The tree branches were moving, but not because of wind. They were moving by themselves. Branches twisted and turned like giant fingers trying to grab something. Tom felt scared, but he also felt curious. In his pocket, a small stone began to get warm. Tom did not remember putting a stone in his pocket. He pulled it out. The stone was not a normal stone. It had lines that looked like tiny roads, lines that seemed to move and change when he was not looking directly at them. The rabbit with bright eyes appeared again. This time, it stood on a branch above Tom. "You are close," the rabbit said. Its voice sounded like soft music and whined together. But close to what? Tom wanted to ask, but no words came out of his mouth. Something moved in the shadows. Tom saw a shape. Was it Sarah? He was not sure. The shape looked like a person, but it was not clear. It was like looking through dirty water. The shape moved closer, then farther away. Flowers grew around Tom's feet, but these were not normal flowers. They had faces, small faces that watched him. Some smiled. Some looked worried. Some looked angry. Flowers should not have faces, but these did. The sky above the forest looked strange. It was not blue. It was not gray. It was a color that Tom had never seen before, a color that changed every time he tried to look at it directly, like the color was playing a game with his eyes. Tom's watch stopped working. The hands did not move, but something strange happened. Instead of staying still, the watch hands began to spin. Fast, then slow, then backward, then forward again. The silver key that Sarah had found seemed to call to Tom. He could feel its pull, even though he was far away. The key wanted something. The key knew something. Tom was sure of this. A sound like music came from far away. But it was not music people play. It was the kind of music you might hear in a dream. The kind of music that makes you feel strange and happy and scared all at the same time. Tom knew he was not in a normal place anymore. This was not the world he knew. This was something else. Something magical. Something dangerous. And he was right in the middle of it.